Life can bring many difficult situations: domestic violence, addictions, poverty, and even sexual abuse by your loved ones. Welcome, Ajmee Cabo and The Cure.
Hello, and welcome to The Cure Radio Show. I'm your host, Ajmee Cabo, with my amazing partner, Boris. This show is intended to expose the truth, educate, and provide comfort. God was my only cure, but we hope we can be there for each other. We address the joys of life and its challenges with God, our omnipotent Father, who is always looking out for us as our constant refuge. Life has trials, but know this: with God, who loves us above all things, there is always hope. Looking Up by Sidewalk Prophets. That was the song we just heard. When life's hard knocks makes us hit the ground, know we have a God, our Savior is around. Holy, eternal help we go to every time, divine comfort and His love sublime. A journey destined, transpired a new song. Most will come to Him where we belong, loved divinely, to generations unified, by God's grace, the faithful satisfied. Today we will be talking about the dangers of predators and traffickers with Lynne Barletta. Lynne is the founder of the Visionary Church and Florida Health Faith Alliance, formed to work at a state level to educate, mobilize, prevent, and promote legislation that stops child sex trafficking. Lynne, welcome to The Cure. Blessed to have you with us.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here, Amy. Any awareness is good.
Lynne, I don't think it's talked about enough where all these missing children go. We know of familial sequestrations, that kids are kidnapped by family members because those actually make it to the news and those actually are reported. But how about all the missing children that are never reported and never found because they never make it? And so how dominant is human trafficking? It's not only in the movies. How dangerous is it when it comes to social media and the games that children often play?
Absolutely. So child trafficking is the fastest growing crime in the world. And unfortunately, America is the biggest buyer of sex in the world. And the demand for younger and younger children is growing, and the demand for more violence is growing. We live in some ways, a very sadistic society and in certain levels. And so it's so important to equip parents and grandparents and children with the necessary tools and information so that they won't be groomed and they won't be taken into these places where they're showing virtual sex, where they're showing violence, and where children could be deeply affected, stealing their souls away. And then there's the physical trafficking, where once they groom them and they get them into this addiction to pornography, then they track them and they can snatch them. So 50% of all prosecutions now involve online recruitment. And that's even including all these children that came over the border that just disappeared. We still have to know that every child is at risk. Every single child is potentially a predator is looking for them, and they don't stop. The average predator makes online contact with children 30 to 50 times a day. Now, add AI into that equation, and you've multiplied it by thousands with one predator. And all they're looking for is one child that would respond. And, of course, they pose as a child the same age, and they're willing to take up to 2 years to convince that child that they are the same age and they have their best interests at heart, and they'd love to meet them.
They tell the kids exactly what they want to hear. They target the kid. Yeah. They study the kid. They know what the kid, whether the kid's lonely, whether the kid's having problems. They know what to say. And there's deep fakes. They can put on a different image on their face. You see it in social media, how somebody can completely change their face and change their voice. Not only that, they're using younger people that are in their family or in their operation to lure kids in. And not only that, they're targeting people through popular games that people are slowly taking in. And that one of the things that we were talking about earlier was Roblox, one of the very popular games, how they have
Yes.
pods. And we'd like to talk about that a little more because, I mean, how many of these kids, they don't even realize the kids know stranger danger. We've been teaching them that since they were kids, but they don't recognize stranger danger when it comes to the internet, when it comes to the computer, that you don't know who's on the other side. And this hits home. Our daughter was personally almost kidnapped twice. Thank goodness there is a God that alerts
Yes.
us to what's going on. But whenever somebody, check your daughter's phone, look at look at her numbers, trace them back. You could trace them in the computer. If they don't trace back, if that number is untraceable, if it doesn't come back to a home or an address, that's somebody that has something to hide. That's a bad player, especially if your child is hiding in their room and speaking to someone for long periods of time.
Exactly. So there's several things that you just brought up. One thing is we call these children who are helping traffickers and predators locate other children. There's a name for that. They're called recruiters. Recruiters are in every single school, and they are looking for other children to begin sexting rings so that children can start sending children nude pictures, and then the sextortion can begin. Those nude pictures get uploaded to the dark web. These recruiters are paid in cyber money and gift cards that can't be traced. And so that's where it all begins. And it's a
Right. And aren't
massive
those pictures
effort.
also used to locate the child, to further
So they use
traumatize the family and traumatize the child and maybe extort them?
Precisely. So they use GPS coordinates, and now they have the ability to do face recognition. They can track a child for years. And when that child gets older, they can go after them and begin the sextortion process. So now your suicide rates have skyrocketed because of sextortion. This is going on in every school, in every county, and it's almost hard to wrap your head around. And yet with the statistics that we have seen, and I work personally with law enforcement, I work with Homeland Security, I work with sheriff's offices, we turn in tips quite often. We've been responsible for busting huge rings just because we did an awareness presentation. We informed parents. They came forward and said, I think this is happening in our neighborhood. I think the house across the
And they don't
street
even
from
have to
me-"
get older. You just said they're looking for younger and younger kids. Now
Exactly.
anything's up for grabs. But we'll talk about these games when we return back, how it's even dangerous, the video games.
We will be right back with Ajmee Cabo and The Cure.
Our name is Jesus, Lord of Lords and King of Kings. Jesus, the name that makes the demons flee. I want it all now. We're taking it back now. Yeah, you know what's going down when you minister. I'm calling the angels now. I'm storming the gates of hell. Tell the devil he don't own my soul. I'm taking back what the enemy stole. I'm raising the battle cry.
And now we will continue with Ajmee Cabo and The Cure.
Thanks for joining us and being with us. Remember that you can also listen to the radio show through our app, The Cure with Ajmee Cabo, or as a podcast, look for God is the Cure. That song was Take It All Back by Torrance Wells, and that's what we are all trying to do. God sends his angels to gather and protect his holy people, the meek and the select, restoring what we lost to evil's lies, to the world no longer having ties. We are new creatures, leaving the past behind, cradled in his words, and by his love refined. Faith behold, sold to the holiest mastermind, moved by grace to the Most High, resigned. John 10:10, the thief only comes to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. We are continuing with the dangers of predators and traffickers with Lynne Barletta. Lynne, so we were talking about the danger of online games. tell us about Roblox.
Awareness training, and a grandmother came forward and said, you know, my granddaughter's exhibiting all the signs of a child being trafficked. She was 14 years old and she lived in another state. So she quickly called her daughter and asked that the parents sit down with her and say, what has been happening? Well, come to find out, a transgender boyfriend had just showed up in her life and had invited her in. He was a recruiter, had invited her into a game called Roblox. And inside that game, as there are in many other games and many other apps, including Pinterest, is something called a condo or a vault. It's accessible only by code. And when the children are invited in and they put in the code, they go in and they are immediately exposed to the most violent, vicious, sexual videos that you could possibly imagine. It's like a virtual reality room. And so it's like they're experiencing it. And this little girl began to get depressed. Her grades plummeted. She pulled away from her family. She detached from her friends. She was exhibiting signs of a child being seriously disturbed. And so they went to the principal of that school in Virginia, and they had no clue what was going on. And then they went to the sheriff in Virginia. Fortunately, sheriffs where we are in Florida are more trained, but in this particular area, they didn't know what to do. So I ended up calling the cyber tip line for them. And through that cyber tip line, we were able to at least put a trace on it. And they ended up pulling their child out of school just as their 7-year-old little sister was being invited into the vault. And at the same time, BBC did a newscast that in Sussex, England, there were over 200 children as young as 9 years old out of one school in the same vault. So this is worldwide. This is not just here. So
this is crazy. And our daughter complains that her safe phone doesn't have Pinterest. I don't care how much she cries or complains or pouts. I'd rather her alive. So, and children, what is roadblocks? What are these roadblocks? Are they dangerous? How can we help?
So here's
besides giving safe phones, not everyone's willing to do that.
We recommend a phone called the Gab phone. We also recommend an app called Bark. Bark is an app that parents can get that will tell them if they are getting certain messages, where they've been on the internet, what's happening in their text. It will not put them in the vault. The child is the only one that would have the code to the vault, but it would at least tell them something's going on. And so for parents to be able to monitor, it's not a matter of trusting your children, it's a matter of safety. And so at this point, the predators and traffickers are so sophisticated and so expert at what they do, they are luring children in and taking years to do it if they need to. They know exactly.
You made an excellent point. It's a matter of safety, because what I hear is, oh, you don't trust me. Oh, I've been so good. I'm going to prove to you that you can trust me. And they don't realize that it's not about them. It's about protecting them. And safety puts it even better, because we are living in an unsafe world, and we are their only outlaw. We're their only help. We're their only protection. And so tell us about any app, anything that's on the internet, these dating apps, these predators are targeting everything that kids are involved in, whether they're games, whether they're, yes, go ahead.
Because AI is involved, there is multiplied approaches now, where it used to be, 30, 40 a day. Now it's thousands. And all they're looking for is one or two children who would respond. And out there in that sea of children, there are children that are going to respond. And in fact, we just had another woman come forward in an awareness presentation. And she said, there's a girl that keeps contacting my son and wants to meet him. And we've looked up her Facebook, we've looked up her social media, and she doesn't seem to exist. But we don't want to get her in trouble, so we don't really want to turn this into the police. And fortunately, my Homeland Security liaison was there, and he said, give it to me. Right now, that's a danger sign right there. Somebody that keeps trying to contact your child, says they're the same age, or says, I met you at a party. Could we go somewhere together? Could we meet? Or could I come over? And they're getting more and more forward about doing that.
We received a letter from someone out of state that was talking to our daughter, and she supposedly, her number did not trace back. The address that she gave was fictitious, except when the letter came in, it was a real address. Of course, she can put anybody's address, but the telltale sign is "Can't wait till we meet." Well, how are you supposed to meet if you're out of state? How is that supposed to happen without informing the parents at least? So that's how they lure once they can lure the child out of your home, that's it.
Well, it actually starts before then. It's luring them online. It's luring them by text. It's luring them by your social media and your messaging. If they can get a child to respond there, they've already got the hook out and begun to draw them in. And so that's where the recruitment is, and that's where the grooming takes place.
Well, save phones have saved our life. There's always peace. I wouldn't trade it for anything else. God bless the people who help. Thank you for what you do. We will return.
We will be right back with Ajmee Cabo and The Cure.
Take it all away. Magnify no other name. Open up my eyes to you. God, be greater than the worries in my life. Be stronger than the weakness in my mind. Be louder. Let your glory come alive. Be magnified. God, be greater than the worries.
And now we will continue with Ajmee Cabo and The Cure.
Welcome back, and thanks for being with us. That was Magnified by We Are the Messengers. Incomparable, His goodness. We glorify you, Lord. To take the wrong side, rather die by the sword. Give us the cross any day. His love means more. All for our precious Holy Father we adore. Your greatness over battles kept us on our feet. Divine gracious might that no evil can defeat, and a presence that sweetened up the soul, grave robber to every heart you stole. Psalm 82:3. Give justice to the weak and the fatherless. Maintain the right of the afflicted and the destitute. We will continue talking about predators and traffickers, the dangers, with Lynne Barletta. Lynne, can you tell us about a rescue story that really touched your heart, that gave you the courage to continue this dangerous fight?
Yes. Prior to the pandemic, we gave an awareness presentation in a church, and I can't emphasize how important it is to get boots on the ground with the church and start prayer in the church. We really are the only ones who have the power to shut the gates of hell. And we've depended on law enforcement and organizations and agencies far too long. And it's time for the church to rise up. So we were in a church, and we were giving an awareness presentation. Remember, my people perish for lack of knowledge. And so the woman comes forward. She turns in the tip. I turned it in personally to our liaison. It turned out that there was a home right there by the church that was trafficking women and children, and that home was connected to a home in Lake Worth, which is south of us. That home was connected around back to Indian Town. There were 4 homes altogether. These homes were being run by 3 illegal aliens. I have their mugshots, and they look like monsters. I just, it's hard to believe that somebody like that could run that kind of an operation right under our nose in our backyard, but that's exactly what they were doing with hundreds of users involved. But these women and children were rescued. We actually drove up to Tennessee. Some of our girls drove up to Tennessee and got a victim off the street that called us for help and brought her all the way back and helped her get housing. So, I have lots of stories of things we've been able to do to precipitate either a rescue, an arrest, or save a life, literally save a life. We also work with over 400 trafficked children with a local mental health facility and our local public school in Martin County. And we are touching the lives of these children for restoration and healing. And it is remarkable what we are seeing God do.
And those are the ones that are getting rescued. But we were talking earlier about how there's so many views and hits on videos where they're actually raping a child and molesting a child and then killing the child on video.
Yeah. Well, let me explain that. So there are 5 levels of pornography, and without being too graphic, the first level is just a child being coached by a man and doing things to herself that also can involve violence. But every level after that goes into full rape, violence, and younger children. And we are talking babies. We are talking infants here. The last level of all being the most horrific, satanic, where there are pay-per-view millions of people paying to view the murder of a child after sexual molestation. It's as horrific as you can be. And I think the thing that we're working hard on right now also is to go after legislation, because pornography is the only industry on the face of the earth that doesn't have any regulation. And 88% of everything on pornography now is violent. And so that's all latest university studies. And these are universities that go on these websites and collect the information. I don't know how
It shows up on it shows up on my feed on my social media, and I'm not even looking for it. So imagine kids who are innocently looking through YouTube or looking through Pinterest, and these things pop up. And then there's link to really bad websites with bad players, with predators. And it's crazy that I forget the name of the website, but a grandmother had reported it, that her son had popped on him. What?
Pornhub is a very well-known one. Mm-hmm. So what happens is children are innocently on the internet looking for childlike websites like they do, and they misspell words, and there are algorithms that pick that up immediately. And then the solicitation starts to get them to go to a page and then another page, and then suddenly they're sucked into porn. And what happens in a child's brain, which happens in a human brain too, but even more so in a child, dopamine is immediately released in the brain. It affects brain development. It creates an addiction, and the addiction starts right away. And the addiction, if it continues, can be as bad as heroin. It will affect brain development in a child completely. And so there is, most of our viewing audience of pornography, surprisingly, is children. Focus on the Family have published new statistics, National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Most of our viewers are children. And this is why we must get some regulations on this industry and begin to shut it down.
And how do we report a suspected case?
So in Florida, we have our number, but you can call the Ada. Could you grab me a brochure? I'm going to give you a few numbers. This one of our brochures with the brochure, the regular brochure. So I'll give you a few numbers, including the cyber tip line, because we don't normally call these numbers out of Florida. We have our
But
own
we could Google also cyber tip lines, right? These information is on the internet where we can download these numbers.
National Center for Missing Children publishes a cyber tip line. And yes, you can just look that up. So you can also call 911, as long as your particular
like I like to say, because we've reached the end of the show, it's better safe than sorry. It doesn't hurt. What hurts is not saying or not doing enough. Thank you so much for all you do, and God bless you and Godspeed. So we'll finish with a prayer.
You so much.
Loving Father, we seek your divine protection for all who are exploited and enslaved, for those forced into labor, trafficked into sexual slavery, and denied freedom. We beseech you to release them from their chains. Amen. This is Ajmee Cabo. You have been listening to The Cure. Thank you to our listeners for being with us. And until next Sunday, much love. Don't lose hope. Keep the faith.
Thank you for listening to The Cure with Ajmee Cabo. You can check out Amy's latest book, God is the Cure, on Amazon, and please check our website, godisthecure.com.